Right, so we have added the cards, and here we are. We have the countries here, but boy, that does not look good. Um, yeah, so that's what we're going to focus on in this video. We are going to, of course, style the cards so they look better than this, which I'm sure we can easily do. Right, so let's do that. Right, so we are back in VS Code and we are looking at the country. No, we don't want a country list. So here, looking at the country card component, we're going to start from top and then style our way down. So we're going to look at the card item. Right, so card item. What do we want to do? So I think for all screens, we're going to set the height to 100. I don't know if that's needed yet, but we'll see. And we'll find out the max width. After playing around with it for a bit, I think I found out that 350 pixels works better. The background color, we're going to set it to, again, need to be mindful of the background colors here because we are going to change the theme color. So just make sure you use the right colors here. And for this, I think we're going to use the elements color. Now, if you don't remember, we set these colors up in the styles.css. So if we go in there now, you should be able to, that's one of the first things we did. So here we've set the colors for light theme and dark theme. So that should work fine once we switch. Right, we're going to set the border radius to 0.5 rem. No, not that. 0.5 rem. And yeah, so that's the first part. Let's look at the next stage that we need to do. So of course we need to look at the image. So we have the card item, now the card image. So in this card item, we target in the card image. Now this is an interesting one. I'll probably leave this one until you actually see it, and then I'll show you why we need to set it. But let's set the width and the height, and then we'll leave the border radius for the image, and then we'll look at it once we see how ugly it looks. So the image, we're going to set the width to 100%. The height, we're going to set it to 150 pixels. The object fit, which is something that I'll show you in a second, we want to set it to cover. Now there are other values that as you saw there, but I'll show you in a browser. I think it's a lot easier. So you can have contained, fill, none, or scale down. But I think we're going to go for cover. But I'll show you what the different ones actually look like. Right, now let's look at the hard work in the browser. Look at that. That is a lot better. So again, as you can see, they're all the same size, which is pretty good. But of course you can't see the border yet, which is really frustrating, but I'll show you in a second. And also, yeah, let me show you the border. We should have some borders, but not around the image. I'll show you the border first. So here I'm just gonna change the background color to red or something rubbish like that, and then you should be able to see the border radius. Right, so again, it's not pretty, but you can see the border radius there. But then if you look at where you have the image, the image is taking over. So it's of course stretching. It covers the borders, so that's why you don't see it. So we need to actually give the border radius to the image as well. So that's what we're going to do. I'll leave the background in for now, but please bear with it. It won't stay. We'll get rid of it in a bit, but I'll show you how to add a border the top. So essentially we're going to target the top left and the top right border radii for the image. Right, so we're back in VS Code, and I'm going to paste the code for the, so here the border top radius. We're using the carg, the carg, I can never say this, function to take away 2 pixels from the border radius. I don't think it will make much difference, but let's have a quick look at it, and if it doesn't, we'll actually get rid of this, because I don't think I couldn't really see it, but let's have a look at it. Right, so now you could see that looks a lot better. I don't know if it works better with without taking 2 pixels off, but when I was looking at earlier, it just didn't look quite right. That's why I took but you can play around with it, and you may not even need it. But as you can see, we had to take away we had to add the border radius to the image to give us that look. So that is a good start. I am going to remove the the background color, because that's actually quite painful to look at. It just makes every country have a color red in their flag. It's not bad, I guess, but I'll remove that, and then I think we could look at the card content next. Right, so looking at the again, you can see these are all paragraphs, and you can see that the space between them, or the margin. We could reduce that, because looking at the design, you can see that they're quite close together. So we're going to remove the border, the margin bottom for the paragraphs, and what we can do is also put some padding around the content. So that's what we're going to add. Right, so here I'm going to paste this. These are just 2 lines. That's all we need. Well, so for the padding, sorry, for the paragraph, we're going to remove the margin bottom, or we just reduce it to 0.2 rem, and the padding for the card content, we're going to set it to 1 rem, so that will be all round, and that looks a little bit better. What we're going to do next is actually the country name and the labels for the population, region, and capital. I think for this, looking ahead, we're going to need that for the detail page as well. So I'll put that style in the styles.css, as they have to be global. Otherwise, we're going to have to duplicate it in the detail component once we get to it. Right, so as I told you earlier, I am going to put the code for the title and the labels. Essentially, all we're doing is we setting the font weight of the title to bold, and the font size we set to 1.2 rem, and then the label we're setting it to semi-bold, if you like. Well, essentially that's what it is, and yeah, that should look hopefully closer to the design. And indeed, it looks pretty good. So the next thing is actually to move so again, you can see everything in the column, but that's not quite right. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at how we show the cards in the country list component. Right, so we are back in VS Code, and we're looking at country list component.html. What we're going to do is we have a div that's wrapped around the country card, and what we're going to do is we are actually going to add a class, let's say cards, because essentially it's just list of cards here, and we can then style the cards. I think we could use CSS Grid here. It's not going to be much anyway, because this is not about, it's not a course about CSS Grid, but just basic introduction, I guess. So with the card, well, the class that we're going to use here is the cards. So what we're going to do now is going to set the display to grid. So we just say display, not block, display grid. And for grid, we need to set the columns. So how many columns do we want? Essentially, that's what the grid templates are for. So what you can do is that if you know the number of columns, you could then say, oh, all right, give me 4 columns, 5 columns, or whatever. But here you could use the repeat function. And looking at the repeat function, you can actually, again, this is not a about CSS Grid, but just to show you. So here we want to set it to auto fit, so just fit as many as you can fit using the size that we're going to set. So fit as many cards as you can fit based on what we're going to set now. So here we're going to set the min max size. So the minimum is, we're going to set the minimum to right. So here we're saying that the minimum is 250. So if it's 250 pixels, then just show it. If it's more than that, then give us the available space, and in this case it's saying 1 fraction unit. Again, I'll show you once we start showing that. Once we start looking at this in the browser, it will make more sense. Essentially, the minimum size is 250. If it's more than that, or if it's bigger than that, then give us 1 fractional unit, and I'll show you in the browser. It's a lot easier to show you. I think we can set a gap, but let's look at what we have first, and then we can set a gap. Right, so this is what we have in the browser. I think I'll put in a gap quickly, and then I will explain what's happening with the min max and the 1 fractional unit. So here I'm going to put in a gap of, say, 4 rem, just something quite big. Now again, this is the column and row gap. So you could do a column gap and row gap, but I think if you do this, then it will do for row and column. Right, so as you can see here, we have this card here is 276 pixels wide, and like you can see all of them. Let me show you on small screens. That's where it will actually make more sense. Right, so here, there you go. If we look at this, now look at that, it's 300. The minimum we set it 250, so it tried to fit 250 in there. So the minimum should be 250, but you can show more than that. That's what it's saying. So the minimum is that, but if the card is bigger, then you could, the maximum is the 1 fractional unit. Essentially, based on the available space, the fractional unit is calculated, if you like. So we set the minimum width to 250 pixels, but here this card can actually take on a little bit more. So we've ended up with 350, but then it can't fit the next one on here, so it has to wrap it to the next row, and that's how we get this nice responsive design. So here we didn't use any media queries or anything like that. We just used the CSS grid. Essentially all we did if we go back to the code, is here we've set it to auto fit. So fit as many as you can fit, and using this minimum definition that we've given here. So 250 is the minimum. If you can fit more than that, then take the available space. And that's essentially what we've done. We didn't use any media queries here, which I think is pretty neat. So I know this is nowhere near as much information about CSS Grid. There's a whole lot out there, but just a brief introduction. Hopefully I've given you an idea to get out there and explore.